Okay, so we're in class chondrichthyes. Chondra means cartilage. Ichthyes is fish, so these are the cartilage fish. These types of fish have a cartilage skeleton, which is how they get put into this class, one of the main things that puts them into this class. So they do have a cartilage skeleton. They actually do not have a bone in their body. Okay? Their skeleton's made completely out of cartilage. The characteristics that you have to have in order to be placed into this class, number one, you do have to have a cartilage skeleton, because that's like the main thing. But you also have a bunch of other things that you need to have. So they have to have biting jaws. Okay, so like movable jaws. Remember, lampreys and hagfish, they just have like the oral disc. They don't have like biting jaws. These guys do have jaws. Okay, in fact, there's an entire movie named after their jaws. It's called Jaws. Okay, so they do have jaws that they can use to bite. Okay, they also have fleshy paired fins. What does that mean? Well, think of Dory, right? And think of like her little yellow pectoral fins that are up at the front. Yeah, those are very delicate, right? She kind of like moves them, and like if you look at them, they've got like bones, and then there's like little membranes in between the bones, right? They're very delicate and like wavy. Yes. In a shark, okay, their pectoral fins are much more like substantial. Okay, they've got a lot more flesh there than in like Dory's little fins. Okay, so we say they're fleshy paired fins because they've got a lot more substance to them than a bony fish would. Okay, so Dory would be an osteichthyes, which is a bony fish, and chondrichthyes, they have these fleshy paired fins. Okay, they also have 5 to 7 gill slits typically. So on the outside of their body, you'd see the 5 to 7 gill slits. Do you remember when we talked about gills? How many like gill arches do bony fish have? 4 on each side, right? So they'll have 4 gill arches on each side. A cartilaginous fish will have 5 to 7, okay, gill arches on each side. So they have more. The way that their gills are structured are also different. So the gill arches are actually going to be kind of like an individual kind of like cells or like pouches. Okay, so each gill arch is going to be separated from another gill arch by like a flap of skin. Okay, so they'll each be in their own little like home. Whereas like in bony fish, those 4 gill arches are all kind of in the same space, and then they've got a bony protective covering over those gills. It's called an operculum, and that covers their gills and helps to protect their gills. Okay, whereas sharks and rays and stuff don't have that. So they have 5 to 7 gill slits on either side. They're in separate little pouches, and there's no like bony protective covering over those gills. That's one of the reasons why like they say if you're getting attacked by a shark to like punch it in the gills, because there's no protection there for them. Does that make sense? Okay. You can also punch it in the nose, but you can also punch it in the gills. So let me just pop this picture up here so you can see it. So you can see the gill slits here on the side, right? Yeah. We'll talk about why it's all scarred in just a sec. So see the slits? So in a bony fish like a goldfish, right? They actually have like this bony plate that covers those gills. Okay. So those are the 5 to 7 gill slits on each side. Depending on the species of sharks, they'll have 5 or 6 or 7. They also have scales. So remember our third part to our definition of fish, aquatic vertebrates that are characterized by paired fin scales and gills. Okay, we've already talked about the paired fins and the gills. Here's their scales. They have what are called placoid scales, and those scales are actually tiny teeth in their skin. Okay, you can also call them dermal denticles. Okay, so they are teeth in their skin. And you can see this picture right here on the upper right. Those are a microscopic view of a shark's scales, a white shark scales. And you can see they kind of look like teeth, right? They're sharp and they're pointy. And you can also see from that picture that if you pass your hand, like rub the shark from this direction, so like from the top to the bottom, would it feel very rough? No, not really. Maybe a little bit, because it's kind of bumpy, right? But if you rub your hand from the bottom of the picture up, would it feel kind of rough? Yes, because it's got a lot of those like points, right? The pointy parts that could scratch your hand on. Okay, so dermal denticles, and then they actually take those little dermal denticles and their teeth are modified scales. So they take those little dermal denticles and they make teeth out of them in their mouth, of course. Okay, so and then there's your rows of teeth in your sharks. Okay, they also have an oily liver for buoyancy. We'll talk more about that. And then they also do internal fertilization. So they mate and the egg gets fertilized inside of the mother's body. Okay, does that make sense? So these are the characteristics for this class. All right, so we're going to take this internal fertilization and we're going to talk about how they actually reproduce. Okay, because it's kind of interesting. Here, this picture just shows you the scales, okay, of the shark. So you can see like the skin. This is a super microscopic view, and then you can see the dermal denticles. Okay. All right. So shark reproduction, and well, chondrichthyes reproduction. So they do internal fertilization. Okay. That means that the egg is fertilized inside of the mother's body. So they mate. Okay. And the way that they do that is the male has these things called claspers. Right? And claspers are extensions on the pelvic fin. Okay? And you can actually tell the sex of a shark just by looking at their pelvic fins. So if they have these claspers on their pelvic fin, then they are a male. If they do not, they're a female. Okay? So tomorrow when you do your dissection, I'm going to ask you, is your shark male or female? And you can tell by looking at the pelvic fins. All right? Make sense? Okay, so the way that they will mate is the male will actually bite onto the back of the female, so like behind the dorsal fin or like maybe somewhere around the head, and then we'll use the claspers to transfer the sperm to the female. Okay? So he will insert the claspers into the cloaca of the female shark and transfer the sperm. Okay, and the cloaca is in between the female's pelvic fins. Okay, and so he has to bite onto her back in order to hold on and be able to transfer the sperm. So that picture that I showed you, this one, all of those scars, those some of those are probably mating scars. Okay, that the female will get when they mate. So you'll see, you can a lot of times tell a mature, like a sexually mature female shark from a not sexually mature female shark based on whether or not they have mating scars, okay? Because they've mated. Yeah, it's violent. Okay, and you can see there's like scars up here on this one, and like you can see the bite mark actually on the fin there, okay? So they do get mating scars, so, because the males have to bite. All right, so after the egg is fertilized, there are three methods of development that can occur. And they will vary depending on the type of shark or the type of, whether it's a skate or a ray. Okay, so three reproductive strategies or development strategies. The first development strategy is being oviparous. Okay, oviparous simply means laying an egg. Okay, so just like a chicken would lay an egg, sharks can lay an egg. Okay, some types of sharks can lay an egg. That the egg is external from the mother's body, so you have internal fertilization, and then the female will lay an egg. And the egg is external of the mother's body, and then that egg will have a yolk inside, okay, of the egg. Do you know what the yolk is used for in an egg? Food. Yeah, nutrients, yeah, for the developing baby, right? So that yolk is super concentrated, lots of nutrients and food for the little developing baby. So that yolk will provide the nourishment that that embryo needs to grow up and become a little shark. Yay, okay? You do have like a hard outer covering on that egg. These are actually skate eggs right here that I have in this bag. I'll pass it around for you to look at. Please be careful because they're like dried and stuff, so they're kind of delicate. But you can look at them. These are our skate eggs. Also, we saw some at the aquarium, right? They had some of them where they'd taken the front off so you could see the inside of the egg. Yeah.
How do they do that?
Very carefully. Yeah. They can't, like, there's a membrane in there that they cannot, like, break, and if they break it, then the egg is, like, popped and it's bad. So they have a way that they can take that front part off and, like cover it back up with plastic so that you can see the inside. It's kind of cool. But they lay eggs. You'll see too on those that are going around, but also in here, can you see kind of like the curly cute things at the top? Okay, those, depending on the type of shark or skate, they will use those to attach their eggs to like kelp. Okay, so they can attach their eggs to kelp, and then that will kind of help this little egg to blend in, right, and not get eaten. Some of them will be like spiral shaped, kind of like a corkscrew shape, and the mom will like lay it into the sand, and that will be used to anchor it into the sand or like between a rock or something like that. So just depends. Types of sharks that do this: swell sharks, horn sharks, and then obviously like reptiles and stuff like that. All right, and so you can see the little shark hatching, and then you can kind of see the little baby shark inside of this picture over here. Yeah? Okay, so that's one strategy. Another strategy is called ovoviviparous. Okay, ovoviviparous. In this mating or reproductive strategy, there's still an egg, okay? So there's still like a yolk, but that egg remains internal inside of the mother's body. So think of it like an egg without a shell, okay? And then that little baby and the yolk and everything stays inside of the mother's uterus, okay, and develops inside, and then is born. All right? So there is an egg, there is a yolk, and they are born. However, the mother does not provide any additional nutrients for the baby other than the yolk. Okay? So it's not going to be getting any other nutrients from the mom. So if it runs out of nutrients in the yolk, it's not like turning to mom to get food. Okay? Actually, some sharks, so it's kind of weird, but some sharks, the yolk is not enough for the babies to develop completely, to be born. And so the first one to reach a certain point of development, after it reaches that point of development, it actually goes and eats its brothers and sisters inside of the womb. Yeah. So if there's like 6 of them starting out, and the first one that reaches like this first point in development will then go and eat its other brothers and sisters to make itself survive. And then it's born. Yeah. And then you can see this picture, okay? So you can see like the yolk, right? And as the baby develops, the yolk gets smaller and smaller as the nutrients get used up. It is cute when it's little. Still has sharp teeth though. Viviparous is the next reproductive strategy. So in viviparous, kind of like reproduction, so the baby does get nutrients directly from the mom. Okay, so there's no yolk. The mom doesn't produce a yolk, and the mom will nourish the baby. Okay, so humans do this. You actually, girls, when you get pregnant, you actually develop an entirely new organ. It's called the placenta, and that placenta is what feeds the baby. Okay, so all of the nutrients that that baby needs comes through the placenta. All right, and so some sharks can do this as well, and they will give live birth. Okay, so they do give live birth. These pictures, so this is a hammerhead shark that they flipped over, and then they're doing an ultrasound to like see the baby inside. That's a little lemon shark being born, and then another.